Sure shot, baby!
So, good day, everyone. We're here for another episode of the DVD show. So, for this afternoon, we have one of the best boxing analysts here in the Philippines, and he recently has been guesting in a lot of shows about the Olympics with the great success of our boxers and also the recent bout of Manny Pacquiao in the last weekend. So, I'll now welcome here to the DVD show Attorney Ed Tolentino. Thank you for joining me here on my podcast.
Good afternoon, Diego. It's a pleasure to grace your podcast
Yeah, thank you so much again for accepting the invitation. And
anytime.
to start things off, I wanted to ask, well, how have you been doing? Especially now, we're all stuck at our house for the past few weeks. What have you been doing to keep yourself busy and in your free time? What do you do to keep yourself sane?
Well, I used to have a YouTube channel, but I'm a one-man crew.
Mm,
So I archive it for now because I was busy with all this Manny Pacquiao, Olympic boxing, all these developments in the sport. So I decided to focus on it. Of course, I'm a lawyer by profession, but everybody's observing the bubble, so to speak.
mhm.
So it is better to stay at home. If you're not gonna do anything, I might as well stay at home, do my interviews here via Zoom and other other ways, StreamYard, etc.
Yeah.
So I'm good. I'm good. I just hope everybody's safe right now.
Yeah, nakita ko nga po yung YouTube channel niyo
Yeah.
recently. And ano po ba yung like future plans niyo? Kasi nga madami din kayong subscribers, madaming viewers. So meron po ba kayong future plans na pwedeng abangan?
Actually, it was just an experiment. I thought the bubble, all these lockdowns will be over soon,
Mhm.
but I was surprised it's taking longer. So I decided to put up a YouTube channel just to stay sharp, just
Yeah.
to stay sharp and to share information. But then again, I found it too taxing. You have to go through several video editings,
Mm.
stuff like that. And I decided, okay, I'm going to archive it for the meantime, and then I'll figure out what to do. But it was strictly a hobby, strictly a hobby for me. I'm a one-man crew. Basically did everything for that, but it's just a hobby. So I hope to resume it. I've been getting a lot of requests to resume it, but we'll see. We'll see if the situation, if the schedule lightens up.
Yeah, it's similar to mine. It's just like a passion project also because I want to be in sports media in the
That's
future
good.
or like it's gonna help me rin with the podcast. So I've been doing it nga since the end of last year and it's similar to yours. It's just me. I'm not really doing anything and then I don't really edit also much. Like tuloy-tuloy lang yung
Yes.
podcast ko unless ka meron kailangan tanggalin. Pero yun nga, hindi rin ako masyadong master pa with the editing. So that's how I just like, yeah, do it like this, pre-recorded and then I post it.
Better.
Yeah. Where you mentioned God, that you've been guesting in a lot of shows. Like I see you with the pre-game and post-game of all the Olympic boxing matches, and then yeah, all the Pacquiao fights, like the in the game and off the record with Migs and all these
Mhm.
shows. So, kamusta naman yung nakakapagod po ba yung ganon? And syempre, baka yung sinasabi niyo, naubusan na rin kayo ng insights and thoughts. How was the whole experience na yun? Busy nga po kayo the last months.
Well, I always welcome this. I've been doing this since 1986. It was
Mm,
just heightened because of the advent of technology. We now have Zoom and all these technological ways to conduct an interview. So basically, it's
mm.
easier now actually, because before I remember I had to wake up early. I had to be in morning shows like Unang Hirit,
Yeah, yeah.
Umagang Kay Ganda.
Mm.
So I had to drive all
Oo.
the way from my place as early as 5 o'clock in the morning. And I remember going to ABS-CBN, appearing in Umagang Kay Ganda,
Mhm.
and then I'll never get to leave because
Mhm.
from ABS-CBN I would go to radio stations, DZMM. They also had ANC at the time. They had the noontime shows on radio also.
Mhm.
They had the evening sports channels. I remember the Score.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, hosted by several good friends,
Mm.
Anton Rojas,
Mm.
all these guys, TJ Manotok. So these are very good friends of mine.
Yeah.
So every time they ask me to grace the programs, sabi ko, sige, I'll go.
Mhm.
So usually mga 8, 9, doon ako makakauwi. And I
Oo.
had to drive home pa. So mas malaking relief ngayon kasi Zoom na lang eh.
Mas madali
So
po eh.
basically, I just
Iba-ibang
stay
link.
in my chair. Oh, I'm just
Oo.
here. Basically, I just change clothes.
Oo.
Basically, I try to share the information. I try to be. They want me for my analysis.
Mhm.
They want me for the information that I can share. They want me to break down the fights. They want me to do it in layman's term,
Yes.
without being so technical. And
Oo.
I've always liked to explain things that way in sports. We can get so technical in sports. So
Mm.
I'd like to say na mas maganda kapag layman, so you can
For
invite
sure.
new fans. O mas maganda, mas makaka-invite ka ng new fans sa
Mm.
sports mo. So I have been identified with boxing.
Mhm.
Although when I was a sports writer back in the 80s, I also wrote about the NBA.
Oh,
I
okay.
also wrote about professional wrestling at the
Mm.
time. Oh, but those were way, way before you were even born.
Yes.
Yeah, I've been around since 1986 to be exact.
Yeah.
I've written for several publications, you name it,
Mhm.
Inquirer, Manila Bulletin, all this stuff. But it's the digital age. It's different now. So I'm trying to adapt to this thing, but it's good. I think it's good. It's progress. So there's no choice but to really embrace this change.
Yeah, napapakinggan ko nga po kayo na magaling mag-explain kasi siyempre 'pag analyst may tendency din magamitin yung mga jargon or yung deep terms
Yes.
na hindi masyado naintindihan ng iba. Pero for you po, you break it down to bits and pieces that, yeah, anyone could understand, and that's really impressive nga. Siguro kasi nga experience na din po kayo before. Pero I'm interested, saan po nanggaling yung passion niyo nga in sports? Kasi ako din passionate, like basketball yung number one ko and maybe volleyball or baseball. Pero I'm getting interested din in other sports. Pero ikaw, since like the 80s pa nga hanggang ngayon 2021 na po, saan po nanggaling yung passion niyo yun for that?
Well, I was a sports fan already when I was a kid.
Mm.
And I was not into actual games. Although I remember playing basketball in high school in my
Mhm.
native Batangas. But I've always been a follower of boxing and all these sports. I love to read, devour information. Back then, we had sports magazines. We didn't have the internet, back
Oh.
then. You actually had to buy all these magazines and actually digest everything in those magazines. I looked up to several writers also.
Mhm.
I looked up to Kinito Henson.
Yeah.
Kinito Henson is a very, very good writer. I looked up to him when I was a kid,
Mhm.
and I didn't even realize we would be working for the same magazines, all these
Yeah.
coverages. So he was, and still is my idol. I
Mhm.
also idolize Ronnie Nathaniels,
For sure.
was
Yeah.
also a very good writer and sports
Mm.
broadcaster. Also didn't imagine that we will be working together for ABS-CBN.
Mhm.
So I love the sports. I love boxing in particular. I was telling my father back then, Dad, my real dream is not to be a lawyer. I really wanted to be the first Filipino world heavyweight champion. Unfortunately, when I reached my teen years, I realized that I could not even box out of a paper bag. I told my dad I can't do it because I have the killer instinct of Mother Teresa. Uh, but if I cannot box, then I can write about it because
Okay.
it's something I really love. I really love. I really have a passion
Mm.
for boxing. So one thing led to another. We don't really know what the future holds. I was studying to be a lawyer at the time, but the opportunity beckoned for me to do this sports broadcasting thing. So from being a sports writer, I branched out. I became a sports broadcaster. PTB4, ABS-CBN started calling me,
Mm.
GMA, GMA7. So when people ask me, ano ka ba, sir? Are you kapuso? Kapamilya? I will just tell them ako ay kaulayaw. I've always been a
Yeah.
freelancer,
Uh,
but I love exchanging information. I love doing coverages. You can really get burned out. There are stretches that you can really get tired.
mhm.
But you see the crowd, it reinvigorates you when you're in the arena. So for me, that's the ultimate, thing that can really recharge you when you see the crowd in a live arena.
Mhm.
So, and I remember Ronnie tagging me along. We were going around Cebu and all these places, boxing hotbeds. So it's really good, it's really good. I do this for the passion.
Yeah.
People say, no, sir, you must be paid a lot. No, in my case, talk is cheap. And when I say
Yeah.
talk is cheap, it's really cheap in my opinion, because I just do this to share information and because it's my passion.
Mm-hmm.
I keep telling everybody, and if I can, grace every podcast.
Mm.
I remember you're not the first student to
Yeah.
actually interview me. I've had several before.
Mm-hmm.
So, like I said, I think a decade ago, I even lectured at De La Salle TAF. They
Yeah.
invited me
Mm-hmm.
for a sports lecture, a
Mm.
lecture on sports writing.
Yeah, yeah.
So they wanted me to do a lecture on sports writing. So stuff like that. And I really find it enjoyable. You can get tired, but at the end of the day, you realize that it's a passion. So
Mm.
you do it for the passion, not the commission.
Yeah. I can relate po for sure kasi ako din kaya ko rin makipag-usap about sports for like 24/7 kahit
Yeah.
nakausap ko like even if I don't get paid or whatever parang basta sports related like that's where the passion nga comes from like even when you listen to the journalists sa US mas mahirap din doon madaming competition and competitors
Yes.
sa industry nila and talagang nag-excel sila kasi nga yun passionate they just keep listening watching reading
Tama.
everything. So I think I really could relate to that. And yeah, sometime then hopefully I get to do something like that. Kaya I'm starting a podcast. So hopefully
Maganda
then
yan.
maabot
Maganda
ko
yan.
yan.
Mm.
Yeah, kasi nga passionate ako like my parents, they won't, even if they're not as passionate as me in basketball, napapakinig sila dahil ako lang yung madaldal like pag sa dinner table about sports. So that's why I can relate to you and when you talk in the shows, parang okay lang sa'yo kahit paulit-ulit every day. Kahit iba, same fighter, parang okay lang. May iba ka naman makakontribute dahil nga passionate ka.
Maganda yung sa inyo kasi yung mga podcast,
Mm.
meron talaga kayong technology is here eh.
Yeah, yeah.
It
Dati
makes it
wala.
easier for you. You wouldn't believe how I trained when I was a
Mm.
kid. I remember I would open the television. There's a boxing match. There's a PBA, on TV. I would
Mm.
watch it, and then I would lower the volume of the TV.
Mm.
We're talking classic TV here,
Yeah,
80s
yeah, yeah.
TV, black
Mm.
and white. So I
Matagal
would
na yan.
lower. I would lower the volume.
Mm.
I would grab an improvised microphone,
Mm.
and then I would do the blow by blow.
Yeah. Practice din.
That's how I did it during our time.
Yeah.
There was no internet, no such thing as podcast. So
Mm.
in a way, my dad was smiling. What are you doing? My
Yeah.
dad is telling me, what are you doing?
Mm.
Why do you have to turn off the volume?
Mm.
So no, I think I can do it better. I want to do it better. I want to learn, see how it's done. If I can keep up with the transition plays and everything that's happening on television, I want to know
Mm.
if I can piece the words together. So that's how I learned. But we all have to start from somewhere, and you guys are lucky because you have technology to
Yeah.
aid you. We didn't have it during our time.
That's funny po because I also do that. Di naman lower the volume pero sometimes like I talk to the players lalo na kunwari team ko like kunwari ako yung coach ngayon yung commentator like ba't ka
Yeah.
pupunta dyan ganyan pero like my mom sometimes says why am I so mad daw ganyan like I'm not the one playing naman pero it's funny kasi like pag yun nga pag intense lalo na like sa PBA Hinebra ako or like sa NBA
Oh,
Boston so pag sila yung naglalaro mas intense pero yung ibang teams hindi masyado so that's how I am also kaya I was laughing because I could relate to what you were doing before.
that's good. That's good.
Yeah. You mentioned nga that your passion nga po was boxing. So I invited you nga po here to talk a lot about boxing here in the last few months. So yung last fight ni Manny Pacquiao was only
Yeah.
last week as of this recording last weekend and
Yes.
you mentioned nga that he was one of the also best international fighters ever like yung hakot niya talaga sa crowd ibang klase and yun nga he's already on the tail end of his career so it's good to talk about his last fight against Yordenis Ugas. So first off, I wanted to ask what was your initial reaction po when you found out na si Yordenis na nga yung makakalaban niya instead of Errol Spence because that was such a sudden change like 11 days before the fight.
That was a big letdown. All of us were all pumped up. We were thinking Errol Spence, Manny Pacquiao. We were looking forward to a classic fight
Mm-hmm.
because everybody was afraid of Errol Spence. And here is Manny Pacquiao, 42 years old,
Yeah.
signing up to
Yeah.
face Errol Spence. Well, Errol Spence did say that he had an eye injury,
Yes.
a torn retina.
Mm-hmm.
There were issues before the fight that his training was lackluster,
Oh.
that he was having weight issues. and then all of a sudden he bails out. But I have to respect. He said it was an injury, so we'll take it at that. He had an injury. And then came Yordenis Ugas. It was a downgrade in terms of opposition because Ugas is a good fighter but nowhere close to Errol Spence. Still, the result shocked me. You know, Manny Pacquiao was a 4-1 favorite in this fight. You know, when you say 4-1, you bet $400, you only get
$100. Yeah.
$100 in return. So he was a huge favorite in this fight. And all of us, of course, analysts, we did say that is the solid pick to win. But you saw the fight. Manny was not the same. He complained of cramps. Yordenis Ugas won by unanimous decision. Now, I just wanted to clarify to everybody, when you say unanimous, all three judges scored the fight for Ugas. But if you look at their scorecards, I read the scorecards, I analyzed the scorecards, the fight was close.
Yes, for sure.
In
yes.
fact, if Manny Pacquiao won rounds 11 and 12 on two scorecards, on two judges, the
Panalo.
fight would have been declared a draw.
Oh, okay.
That's how close the fight was. But Ugas won the last two rounds
Yeah.
in 2 out of 3 judges. So he won by a unanimous decision. That's how the cookie crumbles, as we call in sports. It was a letdown, really. Pacquiao claimed he had cramps as early as the second round. But I thought, you know, he's 42.
Yes.
Those are the numbers that really matter, you know. 42, 2 years inactivity. And like I said, the last time I checked, there is one fighter that remains undefeated in boxing, and his name is Father Time.
Yeah. Even si Mayweather nga po yung kalaban niya si Logan Paul, medyo na lumabas na rin yung age niya, and he's not even like a, I don't know, he's like a professional fighter, and si Mayweather hindi na pareho yung way ng
You notice
paglaban
that?
niya. Yeah.
You notice that? Iba rin ang galaw ni Mayweather doon, ha?
Yeah.
Iba lang. Although Mayweather said, you know, I'm not here for serious competition, you know.
But still,
well, you're fighting YouTubers.
Yeah.
He did say na, I'm just enjoying the ride. I'm not like Manny Pacquiao. He even took a shot at Manny Pacquiao, you know.
Oo nga.
But Manny, you should be like me. I'm just earning monies from exhibition. Of course, Pacquiao said, you're degrading the sport. Yeah, I'm degrading it for 100 million.
Yeah.
But, you know, Mayweather said, I'm not taking risks because I'm retired. I've done my share. And to some extent, when you realize it, in a way, he's right. Eh.
Yeah.
Why should you be pushing leather at 42? Pacquiao says it's legacy.
Yeah.
But your legacy is already cemented, you know. There's nothing more to prove. What for? You should be enjoying life. You cannot fight forever. Nobody's a champion forever.
You mentioned nga po that Pacquiao was focusing on Errol Spence, syempre, and medyo mahirap ngayon kasi biglang yung meron ngang rumors that he was having trouble training and biglang nag-back out siya last minute, and si Ugas was like a completely different fighter. So how would you explain to the audience kung gaano kahirap yun magpalit ng opponent last minute, tapos parang opposite pa sila kasi si Ugas parang orthodox, southpaw yata si Errol Spence. So syempre yung plano parang last minute magbabago talaga lahat. So how would you explain naman to the fans that kind of change?
Actually, when Errol Spence backed out, we thought it would have been better for Manny Pacquiao to call off the entire card.
Oh.
Because it's dangerous to, you know, call for a substitute opponent and train for him in less than 2 weeks. I think it was around 11 days before the fight when Errol Spence withdrew. So we were expecting that the fight will be canceled. But Manny Pacquiao pushed through with the card for 2 reasons. Number 1 is humanitarian. He was the main event fighter. Kung kinancel niya yung card, the entire card would have been canceled.
Yeah.
What would have happened? Yung mga undercard fighters, yung mga trainer, yung mga bucket boy, everybody, ticket sellers, hindi sila mababayaran.
Oh.
Everything is called off. So Manny Pacquiao saved the card
For sure.
by agreeing to push through with the card, albeit against a substitute opponent. Now, it's really dangerous, really dangerous. Now, I think Manny Pacquiao accepted this fight because, number 1, Errol Spence is a left-hander. Okay? So, he thought that by fighting Yordenis Ugas, Ugas is a right-hander.
Mm.
The common stance in boxing is a right-hander.
Yeah.
So it's easier to adjust. That's what Manny thought. It's
Thought.
easier to adjust.
Mm.
So it would have been different if Spence is the right-hander and Ugas is the left-hander. That would have been more troublesome. So he agreed, okay, minor adjustment lang ito. And then of course he thought that, who's Yordenis Ugas? Who is he? All right? He may be a bronze medalist, but that was way back in 2008.
Yeah.
Okay? Now, Ugas, perhaps they thought, he's gonna quiver by the mere mention of my reputation as a 8th division world champion. Who is Ugas? How can he possibly threaten me? And you look at the videos, the scouting report on your Yordenis Ugas. Yes, he's big, but many thought he was slow. All right? Many thought he was slow, not as fast as Manny Pacquiao. And many thought that his only weapon was a right hand. You take away the right hand with movement, and you're good to go. And then, of course, Manny Pacquiao realized that was not the case.
Yes.
Because we're talking here of Ugas, who comes from Cuba. He was not an American fighter. He's from Cuba. What does it mean? He's fighting for a cause.
Yes.
Yes. This guy came from nothing. He came from Cuba.
Yeah.
He was a bronze medalist in Cuba for the Olympics. But in Cuba, they only give the gold medalists a bicycle made from China. That's how they reward their Olympic gold medalists. You either get a bicycle or a pig. So he had to leave Cuba. 6 times he defected, but each time he was apprehended and he was jailed in Cuba. So can you imagine this guy? He even said, I was drifting in open seas. I had no idea where will I end up. So he was fighting for a cause. He was fighting for his family that he left behind in Cuba. So this is no ordinary fighter. And he remembers coming to the United States with only $1 in his pocket. Nothing more. So this guy quickly jumped at the opportunity to fight Manny Pacquiao. No second thoughts. And he beat Manny Pacquiao by decision. And we all know what happened. Manny Pacquiao looked old in that fight. He might want to say, no, I was just suffering from cramps. Yeah, but, this is a case of, the body, the spirit was willing, but the body was 42. That's the significant number in this fight. Age caught up with him. It's that simple. And he was fighting a guy who, looked at him as a ticket out of poverty, a ticket to instant fame and recognition. So that's why Ugas was really motivated to win.
Yeah, you mentioned nga po yung age talaga. And talagang yung size din ni Ugas na halata. Like even if you're not like a analyst or what, mahalata mo na nagja-jab lang siya ng paisa-isa. And yung punches 400 lang yata siya, tas 800 si Pacquiao. Pero mas tumatama yung mga suntok niya. Dahil ngayon, mas malaki siya. So si Pacquiao, iba na rin yung quickness like compared to the fights against Margarito, Cotto, etc. And yun nga, medyo malalaki rin naman sila nung time na yun. Like those fighters that Pacquiao played, hindi nga siya nagbaback out against the best or the best in his division. Pero now, since nga mas malaki si Ugas and iba na nga yung legs ni Pacquiao, sinasabi niyo nga po na nag-cramps and his in father times undefeated. So ano yung major changes na nakita niyo in terms of yung playing bigger fighters nga na similar to Ugas pero now talagang malaki na yung difference? Was it more of something else or just really age?
I think it's age and inactivity. Alam mo yung 2 taong kang hindi lumaban, palagi ko your reflexes will be affected eh. Maapektuhan talaga yun. Yung 2 taon na hindi ka lumaban, mahirap yun. Kung ako nga 1 linggo lang ako hindi maglaro ng video game eh. When I get to hold the controller, naninibago ako eh. Ito 2 taon hindi lumalaban. We were expecting, yung sinabi mo kanina, that Pacquiao will fight in the same way he fought Antonio Margarito.
Yeah, malalaki rin sila eh. Yeah.
Yung Joshua Clottey.
Yeah.
Pero look at the legs. Talagang nilaro niya. Binoxing-boxing niya. At sinabi naman ni Pacquiao, yun naman talaga ang gagawin ko. That's what he told us. That's what I wanted to do. Yung movement. Pero as early as 2nd round, sabi niya, nanigas daw yung legs niya. Hindi daw niya maigalaw. At it came to a point na sabi niya, umaakyat na sa hamstring niya. So it was really difficult for him to move. Now, you're fighting Ugas. Ugas, nakita mo naman ang haba ng reach niya, di ba?
Yes.
Very long reach. Oo. And he's a very good counter puncher. Pag sinabi natin counter puncher, usually sumasagot lang siya sa suntok mo.
Mm.
I do not take the initiative. I wait for you to throw and then I counter. Kasi nga, hindi naman ako mabilis. So
Yes.
I will just counter your shot.
Mm.
So the problem here is Pacquiao cannot move.
Yes.
If you cannot move and you're fighting a guy with a very long reach,
Mahirap na.
you're going to get nailed.
Mhm.
And I think even si Ugas nabigla. Bakit si Pacquiao nasa harap kong kulang? He's just in front of me. He's not even moving. So I'm just gonna keep on throwing the right hand, you know?
Mm.
And remember, Ugas comes from the boxing factory of Cuba.
Mm.
Okay? Nakita mo naman ng Cuba. We're talking Felix Sabon, Teofilo Stevenson. Very disciplined yung mga yan.
Yes.
Kasi they were trained as Olympic fighters eh. So you saw Ugas, very disciplined yung approach niya. Kahit nasa harap na si Manny, pa-counter-counter lang siya. He was not taking chances except in the last round.
Yeah,
Yung medyo binuhos na niya. Pero other than that, very disciplined. Jab, straight, jab, straight. Yun lang ang kanyang ginawa. At nakita mo, hindi siya basta pumapasok. Nag-iingat siya kasi baka mahuli siya ni Manny Pacquiao. It was a disciplined fight by Ugas. But like I said, it could have gone either way. And Manny Pacquiao was saying after the fight, I should have beaten him. He had one of the easiest styles I ever faced.
Yes.
And I should have beaten him if I didn't have cramps. But you know, an athlete is the last to admit his own mortality.
Yeah.
You know, he will always say, "I'm still the best. I'm still the best." But you know, that's precisely the point. Ang dali-dali dapat tong style ni Ugas. Bakit hindi mo na-solve? Bakit hindi mo nagawa? Because you're getting old. You're getting up in years. Sometimes yung coordination ng body and mind, not the same. Compared nung ikaw ay 20 years younger, di ba? So minsan may gusto kang gawin, hindi sumusunod yung katawan mo. Yan ang nangyari dyan. Of course, aggravated by the cramps as claimed by Manny Pacquiao.
Yeah, parang excluding po the cramps, ano po yung parang part of his game na talagang feeling mo dapat parang inexploit niya pa or parang talagang tinuloy niya pa? Like, kasi si Sev Sarmenta ata, when you guested with him to the game, he said there were spurts also na talagang it's the old Manny Pacquiao. Pero hindi niya parang natuloy-tuloy. Was that also because of age or parang sa tingin niyo parang baka rin yung mindset or yung IQ niya dapat parang tinuloy nga niya like once before? Or was it really just because of the cramps? Kasi nga yun, there were, I don't know anong round specifically or anong part of the fight, pero talagang there were times na parang, uy, pwede to, nanalo siya kumari round 4 or ganun. But what's your thoughts on that?
Well, actually, in the first 6 rounds of the fight, as per the scorecards, tablang laban.
Yeah.
Ibig sabihin, Manny Pacquiao was holding his own. And second half lang nung umarangkada si Yordenis Ugas. There were occasions in the fight, napansin mo, may mga maganda na siyang suntok eh.
Yun.
Kumbaga, ang palitan ng suntok, sabi ko nga, parang peso-dollar exchange eh. Mas marami kay Manny Pacquiao, di ba, kaysa kay Ugas. Pero, sabi namin, yung flourish ni Manny Pacquiao, sporadic. Hindi katulad nung bata pa siya, na kapag nagpakawala na siya ng ganung mga flourish, usually tuloy-tuloy na yun eh.
Yeah.
Tapos ka na eh. Tapos ka na. Yun na ang pattern. Susunod, ganun na naman. Remember the Barrera fight, the early fight with Barrera. Ganun na yung pattern eh. Ngayon, ang problema kasi kay Manny Pacquiao, sabi nga niya, again, we go back to the cramps. Sabi niya, I cannot move.
Yes.
Yung power ni Manny Pacquiao nanggagaling sa hip niya eh.
Okay.
If you notice, that's how he generates his power eh. He moves around, hahabulin mo siya, bigla siyang pepreno, and he generates power from the hip, solid. And remember yung kay Kit Thurman, when he knocked down Kit Thurman in the first round, what led to that knockdown? Bago niya binitawan yung kombinasyon, yung leg power niya, sa Kit Thurman, palundag. Nilundag niya si Thurman, tapos let go that combination that knocked him down in the first round. Hindi niya magawa ito kay Ugas. Hindi siya makalundag. Wala yung biglang spring ni Manny Pacquiao, di ba? May style siya, biglang pasok. Hindi niya magawa. Ang nangyayari, naka-plant yung feet niya sa canvas. So yung suntok niya, if you notice, may flourish, pero hindi niya matuloy-tuloy kasi hindi siya makapasok. Usually pumapasok na si Pacquiao pag ganun eh. Dire-diretso na yung pasok ko eh, no? At matataranta ka, mapapaatras ka.
Yeah.
Pero hindi siya makalundag, hindi siya makapasok, sabi niya. Kaya yung suntok na minsan may flourish, tigil. Pagkatapos hindi siya makalundag, hindi siya makapasok. So yung suntok na tip of the glove lang ang tatama kay Ugas. Ano? So nakita natin may flashes of brilliance, pero flashes lang. Pero sabi ko nga, for a 42-year-old guy, inactive for over 2 years, suffering from cramps, for you to go 12 hard rounds with Ugas, ibang klase pa rin yun, ano? At kaya naman impressed pa din yung madami, ano? Pero almost everybody in the boxing community is saying that Pacquiao may want to, ponder on calling it a day. Kasi the younger Pacquiao would have cannibalized Ugas alive.
Yes, for sure.
It would have been so easy. In a way, tama si Pacquiao eh. His style is so easy. His style is so easy. I could have handled him easily. Yes, if you were some 15 to 20 years younger. But this time it's so different, It's so difficult to turn back the clock when your arms are already suffering from rheumatism, arthritis, etc. So difficult to turn back the clock.
Yeah.
Mahirap.
You mentioned nga po na yung cramps nga talaga was a major factor din in his style of play, na halata talaga yun lalo na nung middle to late rounds. Pero as an analyst po, do you have an opinion on if he could have done anything different in order to still be successful in the match? Kasi I'm not sure the styles and the tactics that you would do as a boxer or as a trainer that you would tell your boxer. Pero you po as an analyst, what could you have done, or what could you suggest that he could have done bakad lang it would have changed the result of the fight?
Well, there were instances sa laban, when gino-goat ni Pacquiao si Ugas to come in. Kasi nga hindi siya makalakad eh. If you notice, may mga occasions sa laban na he planted his feet and he was dropping his guard. Minsan nga gumagano na lang siya, di ba? Para nagpapasuntok. Yun yung style ni Manny. So he was trying to convince Ugas, I can't move. Teka, lapit ka. I'm defenseless. Lapit ka. Ang problema, hindi kumakagat si Ugas.
Yeah, magaling sa...
Magaling eh. Nakita ni Ugas hindi ako kakagat dyan. But there were occasions when Manny Pacquiao, because he cannot move, he would tempt Ugas to come in, hoping na pagpasok mo, mauhuli kita ng aking suntok. That was his backup plan.
Yeah.
Kung hindi siya makagalaw. And when his flurries were mintis, di ba? Kasi he cannot jump. Kasi si Pacquiao, lundag tsaka suntok eh.
Yeah.
Ganun ang gulpi di gulat niya. Ngayon, wala. So he was trying to entice Ugas. Kami, my hands are down. Gumagano'n pa nga si Pacquiao. Bukas na bukas ako. Come in. Pero si Ugas, no. He refused. Kaya minsan may stretches yung laban, parang boring eh, di ba?
Yes,
Because Ugas said, no, I'm not gonna take the bait. Because you're still faster. You're still gonna catch me when I come in. Yun ang backup plan niya.
Yeah.
Na kapag hindi ako makahabol, I will feign that I'm defenseless. I will try to fake na kunwari ako'y ripe for the kill. Pwede ka nang pumasok, pero hindi ko magat. Pacquiao used to do that. Minsan, sasandal sa lubid, gaganon niya yung kamay niya, parang nagpapasuntok siya, di ba? Ganun ang style ni Pacquiao eh. Para lang lumapit ka eh. Kunwari siya, magpapasuntok sa'yo. Pero hindi ko magat si Ugas. Very disciplined fighter. Kaya, nawalan ng battle plan si Manny Pacquiao eh. Tapos nung last round, pinilit niyang sugurin. Pero dahil limited nga ang movement niya, siya pa tinamaan.
Yeah, oo.
Ang daming tama, ang daming right hands. You never saw Pacquiao get hit that much,
Yeah.
He got nailed. He got nailed, So, yun ang medyo sabi nga namin, naubusan siya ng fight plan. That's the problem. Kasi backup plan lang yun eh. The problem when the main plan falters, the contingency, the backup plan, usually sa mga boksingero, hindi nila masyado pinractice yun. Kasi hindi nila akalain na kakailanganin nila eh. So usually alam ni Pacquiao, hindi, sayawan ko lang to. Konting sayaw lang to, and then konting combination, tapos na to. Hindi ko That's the problem with boxers sometimes. If you're a puncher, you feel that isang suntok lang to, knockout na. Tumayo. What do you do now? That's the problem. So talagang naubusan siya ng fight plan. Although the fight was still close in my opinion, and it could have gone either way. In fact, Donaire was saying that a Pacquiao victory would have been acceptable, a draw would have been acceptable, an Ugas victory would have been acceptable. Although Donaire shared in the opinion that he was surprised that Pacquiao was more flat-footed in this fight than he had ever seen before. Ang dami ng mga laban ni Pacquiao, ngayon lang siya talagang nakitang masyadong flat-footed.
Okay. And you mentioned nga po na si Ugas, yung IQ niya, yung talagang yung mindset niya, compared to beat Pacquiao was very like top notch. It was 100% there. Pero have you ever watched like some of his previous fights, and what could you say was his adjustment for this fight, or was it just really his natural playing style?
May konting binago si Ugas. Kasi itong si Ugas, usually, ang pressure fighter yan eh. He comes to you forward eh. Siya ang pumapasok eh. Tapos tsaka counter. Dito, hindi siya basta-basta pumapasok. Kasi natatakot siyang tamaan ng kaliwa ni Pacquiao pagpasok eh. So, basically, he just waited for Pacquiao at inatake niya yung katawan ni Pacquiao in the early rounds. Meron siya mga body punches na nakita natin. Kasi alam niya, 2 taong walang laban to eh. So malamang yung bread basket ito, they call it bodega. I call it bread basket, you know. Alam niya mahina. Alam niya mahina. So, and he kept the jab up. Ang sabi ni Ugas when he was asked about his strategy, if you notice in this fight, I threw a lot more jabs.
Yeah, oo nga.
So, the left jab of Ugas, mahaba, tumatama kay Manny. Ito problema, pag tinamaan si Manny, medyo mapapaatras si Manny kasi, di ba, ang haba eh. So, pag kumounter si Manny, kapos. Kasi that left jab forced him back and Pacquiao cannot move. So, when he tried to counter, no movement on the legs, yung counter ni Pacquiao, kapos. So, sabi ni Ugas, I basically stuck to my game plan, which is double left jab, right straight, and then body punch. Those are 3 things I just did the whole night, sabi ni Yordenis Ugas. I did not take any, risks. I did not take any, wild experiments except in the last round when he felt na I had to be more aggressive kasi takot siya baka daw matalo pa sa by decision. He wanted to be in the bag, para walang issue, Pero basically, yun lang daw ginawa niya. Double left jab, right straight, because Pacquiao was not moving. He's just in front of me. And avoid coming in recklessly. Always keep your guard up. Nakita mo yan kay Ugas. Always nakatutok, nakaipit yung kanyang gloves sa kanyang pisngi. Kaya he was picking the punches of Manny Pacquiao with his gloves. So, good battle plan. Ugas did his assignment. Talagang pinag-aralan niya si Manny Pacquiao.
Yeah, you mentioned nga na ang galing ng plan ni Ugas po, and it was a really great plan for Pacquiao, but then it doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be effective in his next title defenses as he has the title belt now. And there are a lot of welterweights that are really great, like Errol Spence, like Bud Crawford, and all these other fighters. But then for Ugas, what do you think is his future in boxing? Like, do you think he can still continue to defend his crown, or was this like a fluke? What's your thoughts on that?
Well, definitely the confidence of Ugas is sky high right now. He just beat Manny Pacquiao. Ang sabi ni Yordenis Ugas, I am willing to grant Pacquiao a rematch anytime, anywhere. They're talking possibly January or even December. Now, Errol Spence, all of a sudden, is claiming, I want to fight Ugas because he did promise I will fight the winner of Pacquiao versus Ugas. All of a sudden, nung maglalaban sila ni Manny Pacquiao, sabi ni Errol Spence, may problema pala ako sa mata. Pahinga muna ako ha. Nung tapos na ang laban, at nakita niya si Ugas na nanalo, para bang, uy, magaling na ako.
Game na.
Game na ako. Anytime. Anytime. So, yun ang mga scenarios ngayon right now. If a rematch with Pacquiao is arranged, Ugas is willing to face him. If not, he's gonna face Errol Spence. Now, mataas ang level ng kumpiyansa ni Ugas. But is it enough to hurdle Errol Spence? Is it enough to hurdle Terence Crawford?
Yeah.
I don't think so.
Oh, okay.
I don't think so. Magaling yung Errol Spence.
Magaling.
Yung Errol Spence. Magaling yung Terence Crawford. In fact, people are saying na buti pala hindi natuloy yung Errol Spence.
Yeah.
Kasi Manny Pacquiao fought that way. Baka mas masama ang naging resulta.
Yeah.
Although sabi ko naman, hindi rin natin masasabi because iba naman ang style ni Errol Spence.
Yeah.
Because si Ugas, disiplinado. Si Errol Spence, he strays.
Oo, tama.
Kasi minsan gusto niya maka-knockout talaga. Si Ugas kahit may oportunidad maka-knockout, nakita mo hindi siya nag-i-stray. Kalmado lang. Alam mo, these American fighters, sometimes they tend to showboat. They want ending, So, baka mag-stray, Pero
Malay niyo,
we'll never know. Yun ang sentimento ng marami ngayon na buti pala, hindi natuloy.
Like the last fight po after the car accident ni Spence against Garcia ba yun? Yung talagang siya naman yung aggressive fighter kasi si Garcia parang counter puncher din. Pero since nga magaling si Spence, hindi rin makapasok si Garcia. So baka kung si Spence versus Pacquiao, you never know na pwedeng machambahan. Like si Marquez, di ba na-chambahan niya po si Pacquiao nung isang fight before. So it's a great point po that you mentioned that if it was Spence, baka nga yung plan niya na talagang yun talaga yung nagpe-prepare si Pacquiao for Spence, it might have worked. It's not necessarily he would have lost worse or like he would have gotten knocked out. It's not necessarily, hindi naman ganun yung boxing na since mas magaling siya, ibig sabihin, it equates to
may mga
knockout
intangibles eh. Kasi tingin ko si Spence pwede mag-deviate eh. Kasi pag nakita niya vulnerable si Pacquiao, papasok yon. Baka masingitan siya ni Manny. Nakita mo si Ugas. Hindi. Kahit pa-open ka, ganito lang gagawin ko. I'm not gonna change my strategy. So, who knows right now? Pero I think right now, the number 1 welterweight remains Errol Spence. Number 2 would be Terence Crawford. Number 3 would be, of course, Ugas. Number 4 would be Pacquiao. Number 5 would be probably Sean Porter. Number 5 is wide open.
Yeah, madami nga magagaling nga po sa welterweight. Pero one point that I read in articles before, like this past week, was some people, I'm not sure who, they said that Pacquiao overtrained for this fight. And I also heard it from my dad that he heard it from other, I don't know, news outlets. But then for you, was that true or not necessarily? It was just like their opinion, pero sa tingin nyo po, iba rin talaga yung dahilan kung bakit siya natalo.
Well, Jerry Peñalosa, a former world champion and a close confidant of Manny Pacquiao, suggested that Pacquiao may have overtrained. Kasi parang malapit na raw ang laban with Ugas, nagro-road work pa rin daw si Manny Pacquiao. So sabi ni Peñalosa, dapat pag ganyan, malapit na ang laban, tapos na lahat. Si Pacquiao, ang daming road work. Nasobrahan sa road work. Yun ang opinion ni Jerry Peñalosa. Yun ang naging problema yung cramps ano. Pero itong cramps na ito, this is not the first time na nangyari ito kay Manny Pacquiao.
For sure.
Remember the Eric Morales fight?
Yes.
Di ba, nagka-problema siya sa legs niya? Although sinabi niya kasi, pangit daw yung medyas na sinuot niya. Diba? That's what he said before. Tapos after the fight, naging endorser pa siya ng medyas. But he also suffered from cramps in that fight. Ano? Ang maraming theories tama siguro, maaaring na overtrain. Pero ang para sa akin naman, over 2 decades ka na sa boxing, hindi mo pa rin kilala yung katawan mo. Ano? Tingin ko nangyari dito kasi, 2 taong walang laban. Siyempre, petits ka, di ba? Relax ka. And then all of a sudden, Errol Spence ang kalaban mo. Remember, hindi Ugas he was training for Errol Spence.
Yes.
Biglang todo ang workout niya, biglang todo. Usually a boxer trains for only 8 weeks. Beyond 8 weeks, you're overtrained.
Yes.
So, nangyari dito, tingin ko, 2 years na walang laban, then all of a sudden, bigla mong tinodo ang training mo. Kaya nga sabi nga namin noon, 2 years, sana nag-tune up muna siya. Yung wag mo nang ganun kagaling. Kasi nga, you're trying to get your reflexes back You're trying to get your mojo back, sabi nga namin So we were surprised, 2 taong walang laban, gusto mo Errol Spence agad?
Mahirap yun.
Mahirap. Dapat sana nag-tune up ka muna.
Okay.
Ganun sina Julio Cesar Chavez Kapag medyo matagal na wala, tune up muna kami. Total, wala naman siyang pressure to defend the world title because he had been stripped of the title, di ba? There was no pressure. But Pacquiao wanted to bypass that. Gusto niya diretso na. So, 2 taong walang ginagawa ang katawan mo and then all of a sudden, todo training mo. Ayun. Pero dati na yan, yung issue sa cramps. In fact, even Fred Roach had a wild theory. Sabi niya, si Pacquiao already had cramps before. But I think it was aggravated because when he became a politician, he started wearing sapatos. I don't know,
Yeah.
But that is Fred Roach's theory. I remember him telling that to us. He started wearing leather shoes. And, if you're an athlete, man, you don't wear leather shoes. You don't wear leather shoes. You can tell even if you're in a coat and tie, whatever, wear rubber shoes.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I don't know how if it's far-fetched yung theory ni Fred Roach, but when you think about it,
Baka tama. Oo.
puro ka balat eh. Dapat ano ka ngayon, nag-a-adjust ngayon yung calf mo, yung ano mo. All of a sudden, magra-rubber shoes ka, tatakbo ka, 2 taon ka nakabalat.
Mm.
Di ba?
Uh,
So,
mm.
miski ako, nakasiwa tayo pag nakabalat eh. Di ba?
Mm.
Minsan, unsteady yung legs mo. Yun ang mga theories nila. And then there's also another theory na kaya daw parang magulo yung fight plan ni Manny Pacquiao is because si Freddie Roach tsaka si Buboy Fernandez hindi rin nagkakasundo.
Yun, pwede rin nga po.
Meron din daw riff yun. Ang tagal na niyan. Ang tagal na niyan. Oo, kasi alam mo, may Freddie Roach faction, may Buboy faction. Everybody wants to please the Pac-Man. So, sino ba talaga ang head trainer dyan? Yun ang question ng marami. 2 dekada na kayo. How can you overtrain? 8 division world champion ka na, 42, and still you overtrain? Hindi mo ba kilala yung katawan mo? Hindi bali kung bago ka pa lang na boxer. Tagal-tagal mo ng boxer eh. Hindi ba? So, although yun na kine-claim ng marami. Pero alam mo na, may faction. Hindi ba? So, things like that. And then all of a sudden, yung 2 years inactivity. And then bigla mong pinwersa ang katawan mo. Tinodo mo agad. Para sa akin, mahirap yan. Dapat yan tune up muna kasi i-check mo muna yung reflexes mo. And he may have looked good in sparring, in workouts, but I remember what George Foreman said. Si George Foreman kasi lumaban din when he was in his early 40s. Sabi ni George Foreman, you will always look good in sparring sessions because you're not fighting a live opponent. Sabi ni George Foreman. You will look good hitting the sandbag, throwing combinations because you're just shadow boxing. You're not hitting anybody. Nobody's hitting you back. Pero sabi ni Foreman, but when you're all alone, that's when you will realize, matanda na ako. Yung pagising mo sa umaga, you're all alone. Pagtayo mo, yung balakang mo, iba ang pakiramdam. That's what George Foreman said.
Yes.
And that's what convinced him na I cannot do this anymore. Sabi ni George Foreman, when you're all alone, that's when you admit to your mortality, sabi ni George Foreman. You'll always look good in sparring session because you do it for the media. Naman camera, wala pang 15 minutes ang focus pagkatapos tapos na Hindi ba? You don't know what happens next. You just get the good angles. So, yun ang sitwasyon ngayon. So, maraming factors para kay Manny Pacquiao. Sabi ko nga, so many things. And do not forget, meron din siyang mental baggage in this fight. It's not just the physical aspect, mental baggage. He went into this fight. He was being attacked on the political front because apparently he's planning to run for a higher post.
Yes.
And he was on the receiving end of several, political vendetta. So that could have been a factor also. Diba? Because I do believe in sports, hindi lang mental preparation, hindi lang physical preparation. Kailangan in sync ka mentally and physically. Yun ang mga bagay-bagay dyan. So you also cannot discount that fact na ang daming iniisip ni Manny Pacquiao, particularly itong political career niya.
Yeah, tama nga po yung sinabi niyo na talagang kailangan din po ng parang warm-up fight. Like si McGregor nga, naalala ko, di ba nag-retire siya ilang beses, tapos nung bumalik siya, si Cerrone nga muna yata yung kinalaban niya. Tapos nanalo siya, knockout pa nga yata or submission. Tapos tsaka niya kinalaban sila Poirier. And di ba, mas maganda po yung ganun kasi you can play like a lighter opponent first before playing the best or one of the best welterweights in your division. So medyo yun nga po yung take rin po from what you said. And yung mga reasons nga po kung bakit natalo, parang it wouldn't have been out there siguro. They wouldn't have said it if he won. So medyo parang it's on hindsight na kasi alam na natin yung result then. So I think it's not like a great look din naman kung talagang people are gonna keep like saying those things because he lost. Parang it's a loss talaga because it's just an opinion, but then it's a loss talaga na you don't just come up with random excuses then. So I think it's like, I don't know if he's still gonna play. It's like he should look forward na lang din to how to recuperate the success if he still wants to have like 1 to 2 or 3 more fights. I don't know, it's up to him if what his plan is. Pero you mentioned nga po that he's really old na and he has cramps and yun, it's father times undefeated talaga in any sport, like especially like basketball, boxing, and all these sports that Filipinos look forward to. But in your opinion, you think he should retire already, or if ever he shouldn't, who are possible opponents he should fight? Because maybe you know the other fighters more, because the normal audience will only know Spence, Crawford. So maybe
Yeah.
you have an idea on who he could fight.
Well, ako personally, I think it's time for Manny Pacquiao to hang up the gloves
Mm-hmm.
because there are no more mountains to climb. Eighth division world champion, all these marquee fighters that you defeated, wala na eh. Pero then again, sabi ko nga, the fighter is the last to know. Ah,
Mm-hmm.
ang mangyayari dito sa tingin ko, lalaban pa ulit si Manny Pacquiao sapagkat hindi siya papayag na ang ending ng karir ko ay natalo ko kay Ugas.
Yeah.
And there are always people around him who are already telling him, in the way I see it, boss, na off night ka lang.
Mm-hmm.
Nagkataon lang medyo day off mo noon. Natsambahan ka lang. Balik tayo ulit. There are people like that, nasa tingin ko kumbaga susulsulan siya na boss, natsambahan ka lang.
Mm-hmm.
Alam mo, para sa akin kasi isang atleta, it's so hard to contemplate retirement.
For sure, yeah.
Pero itong mga sina Pacquiao, all these athletes for that matter, even before they memorized the alphabet, they were already into sports.
For sure.
Ito na ginagawa nila eh. Si Pacquiao, ito na ginagawa niya eh. Teenager pa siya eh, And then all of a sudden, you were looked upon as a freak of nature. You were looked upon as invincible. And then eto na. You realize na eto na, dead end ka na. Tapos na ang karir mo. Hindi maamin ng boxingero yun. Hindi maamin ng any athlete yon na you're no longer a freak of nature. That you're just a man. Para sa isang atleta, napakahirap aminin yan. That all the adulation, is dying down. Medyo you're making the transition na to a normal life. Napakahirap. Kaya tingin ko, lalaban ulit si Manny Pacquiao. Although sabi ko nga, kung ako lang, huwag na.
Yes.
The way I see it, he's gonna go for a rematch with Yordenis Ugas.
Mm-hmm.
They're talking January. Remember, there is a possibility that he will file his certificate of candidacy for next year's elections. Okay? Pag nag-file ng candidacy yan, siyempre, mangangampanya yan.
Yes.
To get votes. Ano ba pinakamagandang PR stunt? To fight again.
Yes, tama nga. Kaya akala ko pag nanalo siya ngayon.
Lahat ng attention nasa iyo ngayon. Hindi ba? Lahat ng, hindi naman pangit yung pagkakatalo ko. Hindi naman ako na-knockout. Puntos lang. Di ba? So, rematch tayo. Lahat ng mga tao na sa akin ng atensyon, focus sa akin. Free advertisement. Free advertisement.
For sure.
Yun nga lang, masakit ito, yung comeback niya, naka-tie up pa rin sa political plans niya.
Oo, yan nga po.
Sabi yung focus niya, split pa rin. Kumbaga, gagamitin mo lang to pangampanya. Delikado ito dahil nga si Ugas, siyempre, gustong patunayan niya na hindi tsamba. But that's the way I see it. It's tied up to his political plans. He's gonna fight again because it's a good PR stunt. And then after that, pwede pa rin. You know why? What if he loses in the elections next year? We're talking a whole lot of money down the drain. What's the easiest way to recoup the expenses? You fight again. It will never end. It will never end. Ang masakit ito, sabi nga natin, the fighter is the last to know. The fighter is the last to be convinced that it's over. Ang problema in boxing, nare-realize ng boxer ito, kapag yun, binibilangan na siya ng referee, tulog. Hindi ba? Yun ang iniiwasan natin. All the greats, halos lahat, makikita mo, Muhammad Ali got beaten up. Mike Tyson, invincible but knocked out in his last fight.
Yeah.
Hindi ba? Nakita natin yan, na sina Sugar Ray Leonard, lahat ng magagaling na boxer, lahat sila bugbog sarado. Kasi nga, sinabihan na, mag-retire na, ayaw, ang feeling niya na, tsambahan lang ako. Ayun, hanggang sa mabugbog sila, doon pa lang sila makukonvince, ay tama na nga, kasi nga, kaya na ako. And remember, there are risks, health risks involved sa boxing. So, if you can get out early nga, mas maganda sa boxing. So, ito ang kinakaharap ni Manny Pacquiao. Yung one fight too many syndrome. Yung hindi mo na alam kung kailan matatapos. So, that's the way I see it. That's the way I see it. Now we're looking at a possible two more fights.
Yeah.
One, the PR stunt. One, to recoup the possible expenses sa election. So we're talking Ugas, rematch, and then who knows, baka matuloy pa rin yung Errol Spence.
Yeah.
Oh, di ba? Pero
Yeah.
alam mo, si Manny Pacquiao kung sino talaga ang gusto niya. Ang gusto
Floyd.
niya yung Floyd Mayweather.
Yeah.
Because we're talking a whole lot of money.
Yeah.
We're talking more dollars than the dollar reserve of the central bank.
Talagang
Push is
marami.
true. If that push is true. And who knows? Mayweather might be convinced because nakita niya ang pangit ng performance ni Manny. He might be convinced, but right now Floyd is saying, I'm retired.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not gonna fight you in a real fight. My fights are all exhibition because regardless of the result, an exhibition fight will not go into your actual record. So even if you lose, it will not be reflected as a loss in your boxing record. So that's the way I see it. That's the reality of a boxer. Nobody knows when to walk away until the fighter is being counted out. Only then will he be convinced that it's all over for him.
Yeah, I agree with you po that I feel that he won't retire also because mas talagang sikat pa rin siya. Like sinabi nga ni Skip Bayless sa Undisputed na yung Ugas na nga lang yung kalaban, hindi si Spence, pero yung buong arena sa kanya pa rin nag-cheer. And he's not even an American or he's a Filipino. It's all the way here. And sa international audience, malakas yung hatak niya. So yun, sa pay-per-view nga, sinasabi niya po if he plays Spence or if he plays Mayweather again, kahit 42 na siya, it doesn't matter. He's still gonna get the money that the other boxers will never get, even if they're better than him. So talagang I think he won't retire pa rin, even if, baka nga it's time to hang it up. But I feel he won't until nga he gets like his Tyson, the one you said po that he got knocked out. So I think si Pacquiao's not the type of boxer that would really back out from these kinds of things, and he still has the chance to earn more. Pero do you agree nga rin po with Skip Bayless that he mentioned nga po that si Pacquiao is one of the most popular athletes like internationally na right across all sports, na talagang yung pagiging I don't know, yung hatak niya sa fans iba talaga, even if he even needed to improve how to answer interviews, or he's not the best naman in terms of he's nice to the fans pero he's not like the other athletes like sila LeBron or the others, pero siya iba yung talagang nadadala niya sa fans, and they all like his competitiveness, his relentlessness. So in his legacy, kasama talaga ba yun yung pagiging malakas niya sa mga fans kahit internationally?
Oo. Talagang malakas ang hatak ni Manny Pacquiao. Actually, kung titinan mo yung popularity nga yun nag-take pa nga ng dip yan because the controversial comments that he made, di ba? May mga issues siya na may mga salita siyang binitawan before that forced endorsers to get out, to drop him, But he remains popular. Kasi yung charisma ng Manny Pacquiao, and siyempre alam natin when he fights, todo bigay, exciting, at wala siyang inaatrasan. Yun ang maganda Kaya nga ang mga tao gusto siya because in the words of Skip Bayless, thank you Manny for not ducking anyone.
Yeah. He's what he
fought
said.
everybody he fought everybody Kaya yun ang gustong-gusto ng mga boxing fans kasi it's a lost art in boxing. Ngayon, yung mga today's generation of boxers all talk but they do not walk the talk. Kumbaga, they trade barbs on social media, Crawford and Spence. But when a promoter comes and says, hey, here's the contract, sign it.
Wala.
I want more money. And when they actually fight, it's a boring fight. They just take the money and run. But Pacquiao, he does not choose. Sabi ko nga tayo mga boxing fans, masyado tayong na-spoiled kay Manny Pacquiao. Because when we say, Pacquiao, you fight this guy, okay, I'll fight him. You fight this guy also, okay, I'll fight him too. We forgot that he's getting older. That's why I keep telling Manny, you don't have to apologize. Because we have to apologize because we've been very demanding. Nakalimutan namin na kailangan naman you have to find your place na outside boxing. Take your place in the pantheon of greats, So 42 ka na nagde-demand pa rin kami na labanan mo yung mga Errol Spence, yung mga Crawford, di ba? So for me, yun ang gustong-gusto ng mga tao. Lalo na nung kalakasan niyan, yung panahon ng Ricky Hatton, De La Hoya. He was, in my opinion, the real ultimate warrior.
For sure.
Talaga.
I agree. Yeah.
Talaga, oo. Isa pa nga mga impress sa kanya is, remember, he came from flyweight.
Oo, malayo nga
112 pounds. to 147. Ano, imagine yung in-scale niya. Just
Malayo.
8 division world champion. Look at the boxers he defeated, di ba? Kaya nga even Oscar De La Hoya is saying na, he's one of the greatest ever. At saka naman nakakita, siya natalo doon sa laban. Pero siya ang binigyan ng standing ovation. But for me, sabi ko nga, if he keeps on fighting and the results are no longer that good, medyo maapektuhan ang kanyang popularity. Medyo tatamaan yan. Medyo tatamaan yan. Alam mo, the people, in fact, ngayon nga maganda mag-retire kasi the entire boxing community unanimous in saying na it's time to call it a day, Manny.
Yeah.
Nothing more to prove. Tapos na. If you defy them and you continue to fight, the attention will start to dwindle. It will start to dwindle.
Yeah.
Ang sentimiento ng mga fans ngayon, tapos na Tapos na There is no, as far as we are concerned, ito na yung farewell concert mo. Ito na yung swan song mo. But you chose to continue to fight. People will not be that attentive anymore. People will say, it's just for the money, it's just for the because we knew all along that it should have ended with Ugas. But sabi nga natin, money will be the one to decide. Siya pa rin ang magdi-decide. So, wag lang sana mapunta ito sa nangyari kina Muhammad Ali.
Yes.
Ali got beaten up. Sina Larry Holmes, Tyson. Sana wag mangyari kay Manny Pacquiao. Because I hate to see that happen. Ang problema kasi, usually, 8 out of 10, ganun ang ending ng mga great fighters. Only a few were able to walk away on their own volition. In most cases, they were counted out.
Yeah, yun nga po So yun nga rin po yung talagang parang pinagdadasal ng lahat kasi Pacquiao nga doesn't back down from anyone. So parang may tendency na mangyari yun. Pero sana nga hindi nga po mangyari. And in the last fight it didn't happen. So sana if he still continues to fight, it really doesn't happen. Like even if he loses, sana like decision lang or something. Pero yun nga, you mentioned a lot of positive characteristics about the whole career of Pacquiao. Pero what do you think will fans really remember? Like when he retires, like when you mentioned Manny Pacquiao, what's the first thing that they're gonna remember? Is it like the 8th division world champion? Is it the not backing out from any fighter during his peak years or even his latter years? Or what other aspects of his career would you think fans should remember or will remember?
That's a very good question. I'm sure they will not remember the Ugas fight. Okay? People will always say, yung mga layman na sports fans, no, we remember the 8 world titles. Never been done. 8 world titles. Pero alam mo, sa totoo lang, madali nang kumuha ng titulo sa boxing ngayon There are so many organizations and there are so many weight classes.
Yeah.
What will I remember, Pacquiao? Saan ko sa maaalala? It's all about boxing. Boxing is mano-a-mano. Ano ba ang prinsipyo ng boxing? I'm the better fighter. I'm the better man. And that's how I will remember Pacquiao. Not for the belt. Secondary lang yan, 8 division. I will remember him for beating Barrera, for beating De La Hoya, Hatton, all these great Mexican Latino fighters, all these great British fighters in Hatton, how he cannibalized them in the ring. How he was fearless. Kasi nakikita po natin Pacquiao na ngayon, hindi po yan ang vintage Pacquiao. Yung vintage Pacquiao went after you like the devil chasing the only remaining soul on the planet. Ganun siya kabrutal.
For sure.
In fact, ang nakikita nyo ngayon, ang inabutan nyo na is the tamer. Gentlemanly Pacquiao. You should have seen him when he was at his brutal form. Wala siyang sinasanto. For a guy who is so religious in the ring, wala siyang sinasanto.
No mercy.
Maalala ko kay Manny Pacquiao. I remember when he was fighting guys like Agapito Sanchez, he got cut. The crowd went crazy when he licked his own blood to tell everybody, let's fight, let's fight.
Wala yan,
This is immaterial. The blood on my face is immaterial. That's how I will remember Pacquiao. Boxing is not about 8 division titles. Boxing is about, simply put, mano-a-mano. Yun po ang boxing. Before, ng panahon ng mga yesteryears, hindi naman importante yung titulo. Ang importante dyan, mas magaling akong boxingero sa'yo. Maglaban tayo ngayon. Yun ang sukatan ng boxing. Kasi
Yes.
kung 8 division lang, naku po, ang dami ng titulo sa boxing ngayon.
Oh.
You have four boxing organization. You have what? 17, 18 world, 18 weight classes. Ano? Ang dami na eh. Madali kumuha ng titulo ngayon. Pero yung talunin mo, yung mga magagaling na boxingero during their prime,
Lahat nga prime.
that's
Yeah.
what I will remember. Barrera, the first time he faced Barrera,
Yeah.
the early fights with Marquez, hindi ba? Eric Morales, what a trilogy, hindi ba? Oh, Ricky Hatton, nakita mo yung knockout niya kay Ricky Hatton, yung naghiwalay yung kaluluwa niya sa kanyang katawang tao. All those sizzling victories, doon ko siya maaalala.
Yeah,
He
that's
was
really,
a warrior. He was a warrior.
that's really also for me because I don't know, like even if I was a young kid, that was really impressive already na talagang natututunan ko na kung gaano ka relentless siya and determined to win. Like
That's
yun,
the word,
no mercy.
relentless.
Yeah, relentless. No mercy siya pag lumalaban and kahit mabait siya, humble siya off the ring. Pero talagang pag doon, talagang ibang klase. Talagang no holds, like no giving up, no. Wala siyang pake kahit sino kalaban, kahit mas sikat ka sa akin, mas magaling ka sa akin, like in the eyes of the people. He doesn't really care. He just gives it his all. So that's something that's really great if that's what he'll really be remembered for.
Tama.
So yeah, it's something that people should really look forward to, even if he'll fight whether in 2022 or whatever. I think it's really up to the legacy nga that he already cemented that you mentioned kanina. Like Shannon Sharp also in Undisputed, he's the one who mentioned na feeling niya dapat nga mag-retire na nga rin daw si Pacquiao because what else does he have to prove
Wala
nga
na.
naman?
Wala na eh. Para sa akin, wala na eh. And there's really nothing more to talk about. Sabi ko nga, no more mountains to climb. For Manny, time to take your place in the pantheon of greats. It's already mission accomplished for the Pac-Man. That's the way I see it, you know. But of course, we have to respect kung gusto pa rin niya. Pero para sa akin, tapos na eh. Wala na. Okay na. Nothing more to add. Perfect na ang kanyang career, in my opinion. Despite the loss to Ugas, hindi natin siya maaalala for that. We won't remember him for Ugas. We remember the Barrera, De La Hoya, Hatton, Marquez, Morales, David Diaz. Yun ang maaalala natin when he was both relentless and fearless.
Yeah. And you mentioned a lot of the fights that he had, but then of course, pwede ka naman magkaroon ng personal favorite. So ano po yun for you? Maybe like your personal favorite, not necessarily the best fight of Pacquiao. And what was, for you the best and his personal favorite? Like you can kind of separate it if there's two different ones.
Well, actually, I have two favorites. Number one, yung unang panalo niya kay Marco Antonio Barrera. First time they met, hindi pa masyadong sikat si Manny Pacquiao. And second, si Marco Antonio Barrera at the time was one of the best pound-for-pound champions in boxing. Barrera was at his peak. Pero nakita mo naman, from the first round until the fight was called off dahil he was beating up Barrera, ibang klase yung ferocity ni Manny Pacquiao. Ibang klase. Yung unang laban kay Marco Antonio Barrera. And then another one, yung kay Ricky Hatton, which lasted 2 rounds lang ata, ano? Talagang tulog, ano? Ibang klase. Doon pinakita niya yung kanyang punching power. Magaling yung Hatton. I mean, although napalambot na siya ni Floyd Mayweather before, pero ibang klase the way Pacquiao tore apart itong si Ricky Hatton. And remember, yung Barrera, yung Hatton fights, walang catchweight yun. Kasi si Pacquiao, may mga laban siya na dinemand niya, yung champion, magbawas ka naman ng timbang kasi laki mo, maliit lang ako eh. Di ba? Remember Cotto? Remember De La Hoya? Remember Margarito? He asked these guys, catchweight na lang tayo. Baba kayo ng timbang. Kaya gusto ko yung Hatton, gusto ko yung Barrera because walang catchweight. He fought these guys at their own terms. Kasi yung catchweight, palagi ko, yun ang isa sa mga negative mark kay Manny. You never fought them at their real weight. Pinwersa mo silang magbawas ng timbang. Kasi nga, superstar siya eh. That's why he can do that. Ano? So, pero yung Hatton, yung Barrera, walang mga catchweight yon. Talagang he demolished them at their own game. So for me, those are the two fights that stand out. Although, when you're talking Manny Pacquiao, napakarami.
Yes, ang dami na yan.
Napakarami. Hindi ka mauubusan pagdating ng magagandang laban about Manny Pacquiao.
Yeah, with a illustrious legacy nga that he'll leave, whether he retires or not in the next few years. And yun, a lot of our fighters now are also getting better. Like in the Olympics, si Carlo
Yeah.
Paalam, Nesty Petesio, and Yumir Marshall, plus the wins of Casimiro and si Magsayo itong
Yeah.
last few weeks. Madaming up-and-coming boxers na bata pa na may future din. Siyempre, it's like a long shot for them to be
Yeah.
close to Pacquiao, and it's hard for them also if you put them in like a comparison to Pacquiao kasi mape-pressure pa
Yeah.
sila, so they can build their own legacy na lang. So for you, ano po ba yung parang future ng boxing here in the Philippines, and what should fans be more excited for?
Well, we should remain excited, ano? Dahil unang-una si Manny Pacquiao opened the gates for Filipino fighters to be recognized. Kasi I remember nung wala pa si Manny Pacquiao, grabe, yung mga boksingero natin, ginagawa lang sacrificial lambs sa ibang bansa. Talagang ano lang, if-feed lang sila sa mga up-and-coming Koreans, Japanese boxers. Ngayon, meron ng respeto sa mga Filipino boxers. Pag nalaman nilang, oh, you come from the country where Manny Pacquiao comes from, oh, we'll let you fight here in Vegas. Ano? Mataas na ang respeto nila. Ano? At tuloy pa rin ang boxing para sa akin kasi yung mga boksingero ngayon, mataas na ang kanilang standard eh. Because Pacquiao raised the bar. So nakikita mo yung mga batang boksingero na umiidolo sa kanya, they might not be able to duplicate Pacquiao's feat. Maring nobody will ever get to duplicate it. Pero kung pag si Pacquiao na idolo mo, ibig sabihin kahit 1/4 lang o kalahati lang nung nagawa ni Pacquiao magawa mo, eh maganda yan para sa Philippine boxing. At maraming susunod sa kanyang yapak. Si Mark Magsayo, nakita mo yan, ano? May mga nakikita na ako ibang boksingero. Nandyan yung KJ Katarahan, nandyan yung Carl James Martin. Magagaling to, mga batang-bata pa, early 20s. So, they are the future of boxing. At maganda na si Manny Pacquiao open the gates for them. Nire-respeto na sila. Their Filipino boxers are now sought after talents. Ano? Lahat yan ay dahil kay Manny Pacquiao. Mahirap yung sinasabi nilang magkakaroon pa ba tayo ng panibagong Manny Pacquiao? Perhaps not in our lifetime.
Yeah.
Siguro somebody will come along, ano? But a guy like Manny Pacquiao, he does not come every day. Diba? He does not, we do not produce a Pacquiao every day. The last time I checked, bawal pa rin ang cloning. So, hindi na naman pwede i-duplicate si Manny Pacquiao. No? So, matagal pa o baka hindi na natin makita ang susunod na Pacquiao. But you know, people saying in the 1960s, sabi nila, Gabriel Flash Elorde, the greatest Filipino boxing champion ever. World champion for 7 years. Sabi nila noon, back in the 60s, hindi na tayo magkakaroon ng Flash Elorde. And then, Manny Pacquiao comes along, hindi ba? Pero look at the time frame, 60s, 90s. Malayo, ano? Malayo. So para sa akin, medyo matagal-tagal pa. But who knows? Sabi ko nga, ano? Pero definitely right now, ibang klaseng legacy yung iiwan ni Manny Pacquiao. He's a tough act to follow. Sabi nga natin, a very tough act to follow. Pero magandang maging idolo. Sapagkat pag nakuha mo yung work ethic niya, pag nakuha mo yung kanyang tapang at galing, maganda yan sa iyong career. Maganda ang pupuntahan ng career mo sapagkat yan ang ininvest ni Manny Pacquiao para siya ay maging pambansang kamao.
Yeah, for sure. Si Manny Pacquiao din po yung upbringing niya, sobrang ano din parang magandang pag-usapan. And a lot of the boxers din of the ones now, like sa Paalam, ganun, medyo hindi rin magandang kaganda yung pinagdaanan nila nung bata sila. So I wanted to ask them po, like, yeah, you said nga he's really inspiring si Pacquiao, pero I wanted to ask, gaano ka parang instrumental or malaking factor din yung upbringing ng mga boxers natin na gumagaling ngayon? Kasi nga you said like sa Cuba rin, medyo madami rin silang difficulties or hardships na pinagdadaanan. So how do you think that helps in their motivation and hunger to continue succeeding at their sport, especially now they're still at a young age?
A lot, ano? Kasi sa totoo lang, lahat ng mga boksingero natin galing sa hirap yan. Kasi kung ikaw naman merong oportunidad sa buhay, kung maayos naman ang pamumuhay mo, ano, at okay naman ang standard of living mo, hindi ka naman papasok sa isang sport na kailangan tumanggap ka ng suntok Hindi ba? Magiging varsity basketball player na lang ako. Hindi ba? Sa boxing, napakahirap Kaya itong mga ito, lahat sila may common denominator. They all came from dirt poverty and that's what motivates them. They
Mhm.
took up boxing. Umayag sila na pasukin ang napaka-brutal na sport na ito because it's their only ticket out of poverty, out of this quagmire of, poverty. And lalo na sa naging pagsikat ni Manny Pacquiao, nakita nila na meron talagang gold at the end of the rainbow. Meron talaga, imagine, 20,
Mm.
$10 million purses. Nakita
Mm.
nila, meron talaga. Pero
Mm.
sana, sabi ko nga, makita rin nila, hindi lang yung perang kinita ni Manny Pacquiao, makita rin nila yung ininvest na work ethic at panahon ni Manny Pacquiao, yung
Mm.
passion na ininvest ni Manny Pacquiao sa boxing. Sana makita rin nila. Pero
Mm.
yan talaga ang istorya ng boxing eh. Kaya nga sabi natin, pag merong isang atleta na pwede mong sabihin the Cinderella man, most likely you are talking about a boxer.
Oh,
Itong
okay.
mga ito, talagang mag-isa lang sila. Kapag natalo, walang kasama, uuwi, may pasa ang muka,
Mm.
wala. Pag nanalo, okay. Not everybody becomes a world champion, mind you, in boxing.
Mm.
Napakahirap po ng sport na ito. Not everybody will end up successful. Madaling sabihin na gusto kong maging Manny Pacquiao, gusto kong mag-boxing din. Pero siguro kung sa 10, baka 3 lang ang mag-world champion at maging superstar. So
Mm.
hindi po biro ang sport na to. Kaya handa ka dapat na mag-invest ng effort, ng work ethic. Ano? So iyan po. Dahil lahat yung mga yan, laki sa hirap. I've
Mm.
been covering boxing for 30 plus years. Tambay ako sa gym. Talaga nakikita ko yung iba darating sa gym, walang dala. Talagang ang dala lang nila, sir, isang sardinas lang. Ba't
Mm.
ka nandito? Magta-try out po ako. Baka sakali makalusot ako. Baka po pwede ako maging boxer. Ano, kasi wala na pong trabaho sa probinsya. O ayan, makikita mo. Ano? So, yan ang talagang common denominator. Lahat sila laki sa hirap. And in a way, that what fuels them eh. That what forces them to really become a world champion. Kasi para sa pamilya ito eh. Hindi lang ito para sa akin. Para ito sa pamilya. Unlike yung mga ibang atleta, walang problema. May scholarship sa eskwelahan, hindi ba? May manager, provided ka lahat. Sa boxing, hindi po. Hindi po. Hindi po. Minsan yung bayad sa'yo, kinaltas pa yung tusong manager. Wala ka nang maiuwi. Hindi
Mm.
ba? Sa basketball, sa ibang sports, walang problema. Well managed, well organized. Sa boxing po, magulo.
Mm.
Ano? Kaya cutthroat 'yan. So, pag nag-survive ka, swerte mo, ano? But not everybody ends up being successful in boxing. Iba, nalilis pa ang landas. Ano?
Mm.
Kaya minsan, karamihan sa mga boxing champion, kapag nakatikim ng konting gloria, naku, ayun, nakita mo, panay ang party. Wala na. First title defense, talo. Pag tinanong mo naman, bakit ba panay party mo? Boss, ngayon lang ako nakaranas ng ganito eh.
Oo.
Buong buhay ko, wala akong kinakain na maayos. Buong buhay ko, hindi ako nakalasap ng ganitong konting luxury, ano? So pag nakatikim sila ng ganun, sobra-sobra naman.
Mm.
Nakakalimutan nila, may labang ka pa. Ayun, out of shape, knockout. Ano? Iyan ang realidad ng boxing. Sabi ko nga, napakahirap po ng sport na ito. Kung hindi ka rin lang dedicated, wag mo nang pasukin dahil pwede kang madisgrasya. It's a very dangerous sport.
Yeah, that's a great wrap up din po for this interview.
Yes.
Na talaga yung mga audience, marami matututunan about the sport. Like,
Yes.
yun nga, best example si Pacquiao, one of the most successful boxers of all time. Pero yung journey na po ng mga boxers, baka hindi masyadong aware yung mga tao na sa pinagdadaanan nila, sa hirap na pinagdaanan nila. Pero through your analysis po and explanation, I think they could really realize and understand and grasp like how great the journey was, how tough it was for them, and they still
Yeah.
ended up being successful. Like not only Filipinos, all maybe like even the others, like yun nga in Cuba that you mentioned, they also gone through a lot. So they all
Ibang
have their
klase.
unique stories, which propelled them eventually to succeed through the work ethic, the determination, everything. Po, and that's like combination of everything, and why they
Yes.
still remain at the top. So it's really a tough nut to crack and a hard feat that all these boxers eventually achieve. So before you go, po, there's like a few questions lang na for fun
Yeah.
that I'd ask you. So one is, what's your favorite boxing match of all time? Like it doesn't need to be Filipino boxers, like just any. What's your favorite?
My favorite boxing match siguro, Marvin Hagler versus Thomas Hearns.
Oh, okay.
Nangyari ito early 1980s. Natapos in 3 rounds. Grabe. Grabe yung laban. You should watch it on YouTube, guys. You should see how Marvin Hagler fought Thomas Hitman Hearns.
Mhm.
Sabi nga niya, he was asked to describe that fight. He only used one word. He said, war. War. Thomas
Sige.
Hearns, Marvin Hagler for me. The
I'll
best fight.
check it later po when I'm
Check
free
it out
after
on
the
YouTube.
interview.
Check
Yeah,
it
but I
out.
don't think maybe I've seen it, pero if ever I did,
Oh,
matagal na po yun, so I've forgotten.
those were 3 rounds of hell.
Mm.
3 rounds of hell. Mm.
Yeah. So yung next question po is, if you have the opportunity to have dinner with 5 people, dead or alive, it doesn't need to be sports
Mm.
industry related personnel, but like any person in the world, who would you choose?
Oh, man. Any person in the world whom I'd like to talk to,
Like have dinner with 5 people, dead or alive.
kailangan ba superstar? Hindi.
Hindi. Kahit sino.
Hindi. Actually, kung meron man, it's still my dad, my late dad.
Mm.
I still like to talk to him again. I still like to tell him na, share him the stories
Mm.
that happened because my dad remains my inspiration. My
Mm.
father remains my inspiration. He was the one who pushed me to, follow whatever you want. Kung saan ka tingin mo doon ka pupunta, follow it.
Mm.
So if there's one guy I'd like to talk to, it's my dad. Because may mga unfinished pa rin kami conversations eh.
Mm.
So you could ask for the greatest celebrity in the world and all those guys, but nothing beats talking to your dad.
How about
Nothing
sino pa
beats
ba yung
talking-
sasama mo dun sa dinner table? Kung may 4 pa po kayong isasama. Kahit sino.
Kung may mga superstar na, I'd like to talk to Muhammad Ali.
Mm.
Kasi for me, not only was he the most talkative athlete in the in the world, pero
Mm.
siya he lived a different life. Ibang klase yung beliefs niya, yung religious beliefs niya, political beliefs niya.
Mm.
Since I'm a boxing fan, Muhammad Ali, they didn't call him the greatest for nothing.
Mm.
Diba? So, yung mga ganun ibang klase yung Muhammad Ali. A very complex personality, what he went through and everything. So, kasama ko yan. Sino pa ba mga gusto mong makausap ng mga sikat?
Kahit sinong boxers po. Baka mga
Find
idol.
out sports siguro Muhammad Ali.
Mm.
I'd also like to talk to Sugar Ray Leonard.
Mm.
Magaling din yan. Ibang klaseng boxer din yan.
Mm.
I would also like to talk to one guy. He's a legendary fighter. His name is Jack Johnson.
I've heard, yeah.
Yeah, Jack Johnson was
I've heard.
the first black heavyweight champion.
Okay, yeah. Si CJ McCollum, he said it in a
Yeah.
podcast recently na he wanted to talk to him also in a
Yeah,
podcast.
because you know why? You look at his life, he was a very good fighter, but he went through racial prejudice. He being a
Oh.
black man, the government even set him up to fail
Mm.
because they didn't want a black fighter to be holding the heavyweight title, which they believe was a title not meant for fighters of his skin or color. So Jack Johnson would make for an interesting conversation also. Maganda rin yung career niya. And switching to
pa.
another sport, ay syempre, so gusto mong makausap si Michael Jordan.
Yeah, madaming
Ah,
sumagot na po niyan. Si Michael Jordan. Yeah.
Una kasi si Michael Jordan, napakahirap interviewin. He does not readily, he does not readily grant interviews. Yeah, sa basketball, dalawa lang yan sa akin Michael Jordan and Bill Russell.
Mm.
The winningest athlete, the
Yeah.
winningest NBA player of all time.
Mm.
Tsaka iba yung Bill Russell. Ibang
Siyempre.
klase.
Celtics fan po kasi ako So syempre agree.
Yeah. Ibang klase yung
Mm.
yung Bill Russell. Yung personality niya kakaiba. Those are the athletes I'd like to talk to if given the chance.
Yeah. So for the last question po, and I mentioned that I invite people lang here to my podcast. Like madami akong basketball guests, volleyball guests. Now boxing. And si Carlo Pamintuan also, I had him for the previous episode.
Carlo,
He talked about the Olympics also, the boxing and other sports.
Great guy.
So I've had a lot of guests all across all sports here in my podcast. So I wanted to ask sino po yung pwede kong ma-invite here on my podcast na may magandang story na willing nga mag-share?
Madami. Check mo sa Facebook, ha. I-check mo yung kaibigan ko si Last Light also. Anton Rojas.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, he's a good guy, very humble. It's
Mm.
actually his birthday today. Yeah, he's a
Oh,
great
okay.
guy.
Mm.
Very humble, down to earth. Tsaka lahat ng sports kino-cover niyan.
Okay.
I've worked with him sa ABS-CBN. Yan, okay yan. And of course, another guy, you can't go wrong, Kinito Henson.
Oh, I've had him already. He was one of my
Yeah.
first guests. I
Yeah,
told him na I'll invite him again. Eh.
Oh, he is a very great guy. I idolized him when he was when I was young.
Mhm.
Si Kinito Henson. They call him the Dean.
Yeah,
And for a good reason, prolific sports writer, the most prolific sports writer I've ever met, and the most humble.
yeah.
Napaka-humble niyan si Kinito Henson. Wala kang sukat kabigit sa ugali niyan. He's the dean. Yan, yung mga yan. Anton Rojas, also talk to him. Yan, magagaling yung mga yan eh.
Mm.
Masasayang kasama ba?
Yeah.
Mm.
Kinito's one of my favorite din po. Like, whenever he speaks in any show, kahit parang paulit-ulit na lang na siya na lang palaging ini-interview, okay lang sa akin kasi parang may mapupulot ka every time. Gusto ko siya pag nagsasabi.
Walang ano kay Kinito eh. I mean, talagang ano yan eh, walking encyclopedia yan eh. Kinito eh. He's always willing to share information. Great guy. I mean, how long has he been a sports writer? My God.
Matagal na rin po. He mentioned
matagal, 70s pa ata siya eh.
Yeah.
Early 80s. Great guy. All these guys are great. In a way naman kami, we're one big happy family. We might be identified with different networks, but at the end of the day, we're just guys who love sports. Yun lang. We just love sports. Yun lang aming passion. Nothing more.
Yeah. So that's all the time we have for Attorney Ed. Thank you for joining me here on my podcast. It was a really great conversation. Kahit di nga ako masyadong informed with boxing compared to other people, I was able to engage in a great conversation with you, and you provided and shared a lot of insights with the Pacquiao fight and also his career, and even Yordenis Ugas. Some people are not known of his career. Like me, it's the first time I saw him fight against Pacquiao, and also the legacy of boxing here in the Philippines. Manny Pacquiao started, and hopefully it will continue over the next few years. So those are like the great things you mentioned here in my podcast. And before you go, is there any last message you'd want to share?
Well, I just want to say thank you for inviting me sa iyong podcast. And like I said, ako naman always willing to share information, share my insights. It's always great to be mixing with you, the young generation. Kayo magdadala nito eh. Kayo mga future broadcasters, kayo mga future So kami lang umaalala lang naman kami, no? Kaya we're just willing to share, be part of the learning process, sabi nga nila. So maraming salamat. Yun lang naman.
Yes, I'll try to invite you din po kung may magandang boxing news ulit.
Yes.
Next few weeks, next few months. So maganda po talaga yung analysis niyo. So before you go, is it okay if we take a picture?
Yeah, sige, paano ba yan?
I'll take it po here.
Sige.
1, 2, 3. Okay, thank you so much again, Attorney Ed, for joining me here on my
Stay safe, Stay safe.